Good morning. Welcome to our first ThreatExchange webinar. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to introduce some of our product team, review our mission, and provide a community update. Then we're going to demo the new features we released in version 2.8 and jump into a Q&A before we wrap things up. If you have any questions throughout, jot them down in the comment section below, and we'll try to address as many as possible before finishing today. My name is Julian. I'm a strategic project manager here on the Facebook security team. I'm joined today by Amir, our product manager, and Mo, our engineering lead. As many of you know, ThreatExchange was created a few years ago to solve what we saw as a very real need in the industry. At the time, Facebook was dealing with a threat that we had reason to believe other companies would be faced with as well. So we reverted to the archaic means of encrypted communications, email threads, and phone calls, and very quickly realized that there needed to be a more efficient system in place to both facilitate and encourage collaboration across companies and industries. From this, ThreatExchange as a product and platform were created with the sole goal of making the internet safer and cleaner for everyone. The beauty of security collaboration is that when one company gets stronger, so does the community. And with that, the experience online of all improves. So let's talk a little bit about this community. While we're still very closely vetting all new applicants to ThreatExchange within our continued closed beta, we're currently at about 500 members representing 17 different industries. Understanding the merits of good ThreatExchange citizenship, these members are contributing nearly 8 million indicators a day to the exchange. Now, I've had the absolute pleasure of speaking with many of you over the last few months. It was these conversations that gave us a great insight into what's currently working and what still needs improvement. And it was this feedback that drove the development we did in version 2.8 and will continue to drive the roadmap of ThreatExchange in the future. So feedback's incredibly important to us, and keep it coming. In the meantime, let's today talk about the features we've recently released. The ability to tag content for greater discoverability, the ability to receive push notifications on new content, and finally, the ability to sort based off of relevancy. To do that, I'd like to introduce our lead engineer, Mo.
Thanks very much, Julian. Thanks very much, everyone, for coming. I appreciate you coming to this webinar. We're going to demo the 3 features that we released as part of version 2.8 of ThreatExchange. And as Julian said, the first one that we're going to be talking about is Webhooks. So Webhooks allow you to receive real-time notifications of new data as it hits ThreatExchange. So instead of having to come to ThreatExchange and query it every time you're looking for something, you will automatically be pushed these updates. Think about like push notifications on your other apps. So we've got some demos as to how to get Webhooks set up and what it will look like once you've got it running. To start with Webhooks, I'll walk you through the setup process so that you can receive updates to your external server which you've set up. I've set up a test account here, John Doe, who is a ThreatExchange member, and I'll show you how he would go about setting up ThreatExchange. First, I'm going to go to the developer website at developers.facebook.com/apps. I'm going to go to my ThreatExchange app, which I use to query ThreatExchange. On the left-hand side, I'm going to add products. I'm going to go down to Webhooks, and when I click the Get Started button, it'll show up on the left-hand side navigation bar. From here, I can set up subscriptions to ThreatExchange data. I can click New Subscription, click ThreatExchange, and then fill out the required parameters to set up a subscription. The most important is your callback URL, where you want to receive the HTTP posts for updates for new data for ThreatExchange. In this example, it's exampleserver@mydomain.com. Now, you're going to have to set up a verify token and then your subscription. Once you've done that, you can click this Verify and Save button, and your Webhooks subscription will be live. The Verify token here is used to ensure that you own the server that you say you own, the callback endpoint. You'll have to, on your server, set up a computation to handle this verification token. It's a challenge response. And once you've done so, then the subscription will be live and active. So for this verify token, again, once you're setting it up, you can use any non-empty string. In this example, we've used hello. Now, we've contributed a lot of getting started code for getting these push notifications from ThreatExchange to our GitHub. So for example, we've set up the server information and the server computations. We've also set up code you could deploy on an example Heroku app where you would receive the notifications. If you're uncomfortable, for example, using a third-party service to collect your threat intelligence, as many of you might be, you can also do so using our open source Python library called PyTex. So using that library, I'll now walk through a demo of another way you could set up Webhooks. So here on the left-hand side, what I've got is a simple Python script, which sets up an RTU, real-time updates listener on the left. You can see it's just a couple of lines of code. This will set up a listener on my local machine to receive updates. And I've also got an example server, which will emulate the Facebook's graph sending updates to my listener. So to begin this demo, I'm going to first start my listener, my callback endpoint. And when I run it, I see that it's going to run on my local machine on this port 2016. Now I'm going to pretend I'm triggering Facebook's updates. I'm going to start the example server, and I can see that the updates in real time are hitting my, my listener. And so this is an example of what data flowing to you from Facebook might look like. So the real power in this feature is that it allows you to get notifications in real time of new threat intelligence. Instead of having to continually scrape ThreatExchange for the data you're interested in, you now receive it and you can store it as you would on your own backend, for example. So that recaps one of the major features we launched with version 2.8 of ThreatExchange Webhooks. The other big feature that we released on version 2.8 was threat tags. So tags are supposed to be meant as an extensible framework for you to classify your threat intelligence. So for example, if you want to see everything related to phishing or everything related to malware, how would you do so? The answer is now using threat tags. So you can think of these as hashtags for threat data. I'll walk through an example now of how to publish data with threat tags and how to use threat tags more as well. So here I'm using the Graph API Explorer, a very awesome tool. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend you do so. I'm going to post to ThreatExchange here, post to threat descriptors. I'm going to publish a new threat descriptor with these parameters, and the indicator itself is going to be demo threatexchange1.example.com. I'm going to publish it with this tag, demo1. I see that it's been published, and this descriptor now, if I query for its fields, I can see that the tag is attached to this object. So this hashtag is now a part of this threat data. This is demo1. Now, how do I know what other people are using as their threat tags? How do I discover these threat tags and use the similar ones? Well, first, I want to show you how you can find all the objects related to a threat tag. So if I go to this tags ID and I search for the tagged objects, I do indeed see my own descriptor, which I just published. Now, if I want to search for similar tags which other people are using to tag their objects, what I would do is I would query the threat tags endpoint. So this is an endpoint we've built for you to query the types of threat tags other people are using in ThreatExchange. So here, for example, I can see if I search for demo, I see the tag I published with demo1 and the tag someone else has published with demo2. Now, the privacy surrounding tags is the same as the privacy surrounding other types of data. You can't see a tag if you can't see any data published with that tag. And similarly, you can only see a tag if someone else has published data with that tag. So in this way, it respects the privacy of ThreatExchange at large because you're only able to see data that has been explicitly shared with you. Now, let's say you want to change the tags on your piece of threat intelligence. How would you do so? We have parameters that allow you to do this. Those parameters are called add tags to add some tags, remove tags to remove some tags, or just tags to reset and overwrite the existing list of tags on an object. So we built out tags in part in response to a lot of feedback we had gotten about enums that we were using previously, like attack type and threat type. These previously had descriptive characteristics like phishing or financial scam and so on, but it was very unclear when to use which and which was more appropriate in which scenario. So we've unified this framework into tags, and right now in version 2.8 of ThreatExchange, you can only publish via threat tags. You can't publish, for example, using attack type and threat type. If you try to do so, you'll get an error. If you publish in a version less than 2.8 on ThreatExchange, you can still publish an attack type and threat type, but those will automatically be converted to tags as well. And on December 5th, we'll be sunsetting the attack type and threat type features. So we really encourage you to move to tags. We think they're a lot more extensible and a lot more robust than the previous frameworks we had. We've also published a list of best practices for using threat tags on our documentation. So for example, formatting and so on. Great. So far you've learned how to use webhooks. You've learned how to subscribe to updates from ThreatExchange and new threat intelligence. You've learned how to sort your data and to classify it using threat tags. And finally, we were talking about this small tactical change, but very important change we've made, which is this new ability to sort ThreatExchange results by their relevance tier query. So here I'm using the Graph API Explorer again. I'm going to search for all threat descriptors, which contain the text malware, and also our share level white for the purposes of this demonstration. Now, when I execute this query, the default sort order that the results are returned in is by the creation time. So when I submit this, I can see that I see the most recent data first. I can see the first descriptor was published on October 19th, and the second was on October 18th, and the third on October 9th, and so on. But this may not be the best because it's sorted in order of create time, but not necessarily in order of how closely it matches your text query. But we can change that. So if you add a parameter to sort by relevance, it doesn't sort by create time anymore, but it sorts by how closely it matches the text in your search query. So for example, you can see the string malware appear very explicitly in all of the indicators which are returned. So we think this is a small but very important change. For example, if you're just querying ThreatExchange for one indicator, you want to see if anyone has published information there, you'll want to use sort by relevance and not sort by create time. If you use sort by create time, you'll have to sort through all the remaining results, filter through them, and find the one you want. But if you sort by relevance, the one you want should appear at the top. So we really encourage feedback on this feature. We'd like to know how you like it and how many of you are using it. And we really hope to hear from you. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the FAQ that we launched. So we've received tons of awesome questions from the community. We have compiled a lot of the most frequently asked ones in this FAQ on our developer documentation. So if you go to our developer documentation, on the left-hand side, you'll see the FAQ. If you are struggling with ThreatExchange, you're just getting started, or you're an experienced user and you have some questions, you can always check this FAQ first. If you still have any remaining questions, we encourage you to post in the ThreatExchange group on Facebook, where we will answer them ourselves or other community members can answer them. You can also search previous questions in that group to see if anyone has asked anything similar. So you've gotten a demo now of our major releases in version 2.8. You've learned about webhooks, you've learned about threat tags, you've learned about sorting results, and you've learned about our FAQ. We'll open up to our Q&A in just a few minutes, but before we do so, I'd like to thank everyone who made this possible. In particular, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. ThreatExchange is a community platform, and we really appreciate your contributions to the community and to the platform. I'd like to thank everyone else as part of the ThreatExchange team that is not in the room with us here today, including everyone who built it, everyone who helps operationally and organizationally. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank our open source collaborators, especially Mike Goffin at MITRE, who maintains the PyText library, the Python library for ThreatExchange. And finally, last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank the AV team here at Facebook who has helped make this awesome presentation for us. And with that, I'll open up to Q&A. I'd like to welcome back to the podium Julian and Amir from our team. Thanks very much, everyone.
OK, so we have a few questions that we've received over the last few weeks that we want to address today. The first is, what does the future of ThreatExchange look like? Amir?
Yeah, I can probably address that. So hi, everyone. And again, thank you for coming to this webinar. My name is Amir, and I'm the product manager for ThreatExchange. So I believe the question was like, what is the future roadmap for ThreatExchange? And I think it's actually a good question to ask and also to address. So if we take a step back, in the last couple of weeks and even months, we actually tried to get a sense of like what the community thinks about ThreatExchange, what are the gaps and opportunities to make it a really valuable product. When we think about like ThreatExchange, we really want to make sure that like this address needs of the community in order to progress ourselves in collaborating more closely with companies to be more effective in fighting these common threats. So what we've done is we learned a lot about some of the gaps that we have, as well as opportunities for the future. And what you should be expecting going forward to see is more features that enable you to discover content, as well as like chiming in with your opinion. So over time, we can get a more actionable set of data that people in the community can action on top of that. I also want to call out that like right now, and even in the next couple of weeks, our primary focus is about an API platform. And on that sense, most of the features that you will see will be around that and how to make the content more actionable. In addition, we also want to make sure that ThreatExchange is a collaboration platform, enables people to establish and foster collaborations and partnerships between members in the community. So that's another theme that people should expect to see more advancements on. And overall, I think that should answer your question about the future for ThreatExchange.
Are we looking to support any additional types of data in the future?
Sure, I can take that one. So the data formats in ThreatExchange, the type of data we support is very extensible. So if you have certain features you want to request, like for example, certificate information or something, we can store that information in ThreatExchange very easily. So if there are things like you want to see in ThreatExchange in terms of the types of indicators or a feature you'd like to request, highly recommend you reach out to us in the Facebook ThreatExchange group, and we'd be happy to make it happen.
Similarly, are we looking to support any additional formats or standards in the future?
Yeah, I can address that.
Sure.
We intentionally created an architecture for ThreatExchange that is easier to consume and work with. We based on the Facebook platform, which provides a very known structure and architecture around JSON. And the feedback that we've got recently from many members in the community that they really appreciate that way because it enables them to integrate much more quickly. However, we also acknowledge that in the industry today, there's many standards and other systems that people use, and there is a clear need to have more integration between those standards. Right now, we do not provide out-of-the-box support for, I guess, Tix and Taxi. I guess that was your question. However, we really encourage the community that if you guys create and build those, we will be more than happy to support by providing guidance as well as reviews and make it something that the community contributes as a whole and having it available for people who use both this system as well as ThreatExchange.
When can our members start adding malware to the exchange?
Amir, you want to take that?
Yeah. So right now, it is possible to discover malware on our exchange, which is mainly published by teams at Facebook. We do know that there is a need also for the community to share these malwares directly with other members. And we are looking to do it sometimes in 2017. We do not have a clear timeline for that.
Is there a list of popular tags being used?
Yeah, absolutely. I can take that one. So the most popular tags being used right now in ThreatExchange are the ones that previously codified the attack type and threat type. So on our documentation, we've made a list of the most commonly used tags as of today, and we've also published best practices for using tags going forward. So these things will help you discover what's existing in ThreatExchange right now, and as ThreatExchange evolves, we've built this endpoint for you to discover new tags, which I demoed in my presentation. So if you want to search what type of tags people are using to describe certain types of data, you can do so with that endpoint and then find the objects that are tagged with those tags.
What's the best way for our members to impact the ThreatExchange community?
So I can take that one as well. So what's the best way for ThreatExchange members to impact or contribute to the ThreatExchange community? It's an awesome question. Really, thank you for asking that. So the first thing I would say is definitely continue contributing actionable data to ThreatExchange, especially data which you think other people in your industry or across industries might see, might prevent a breach, might help a response, and that sort of thing. ThreatExchange's value really relies on the value of the data that the community provides. If you'd like to support even further and contribute to the community even further, we encourage you to be active in our open source repositories, for example, contributing your scripts or whatever you have built around ThreatExchange to our GitHub, or contributing to our libraries there. And finally, we encourage you to participate actively in discussions, for example, that happen in the ThreatExchange Facebook group or with us or with other community members, and to make this a really great place to collaborate.
All right, that's all, folks.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.